The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
We'll do the Aaron Rodgers thing again, whatever.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Who asks, why should I look forward to Aaron Rodgers as Vikings QB? Look, it's not happening. Do I have to tell you? It's not happening. You can feel it. There's bloggers. There was one, I think it was Viking Age. I think Kevin Seifert had a tweet where they're starting to like, whoa, it's starting to make sense. Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings. Did you know that the last time a Packers quarterback went to the Jets, he went to the Vikings after? Yeah, we know. We all know. We always get it. This is, to me, one of those stories that you hear a lot about when it's really hard to make content. In the season, everybody's got ideas, right? Everybody's got their thoughts and everybody can make opinions. You can all do your listicles. You can do your power rankings every week. Like there's your Tuesday articles done. You do your power rankings. But in the off season, when you have to generate content, you either get really creative stuff, people who want to go in depth, people who are learning a new thing and share it with you. I try to do that the best I can. Or people who take somebody unfollowing their team on Instagram because they deleted their Instagram account or something and spinning it into a trade rumor because they can't come up with anything else, right? And the whole reason that I have kept mailbags as long as I have on Locked On Vikings is to give me a chance, like to force me to engage with the topics that get buzzy, that people are talking about, that people maybe want to hear about, that I don't respect. And this is one of those. I don't respect it. If you are earnestly pushing this, I don't respect you. And there are so many deadbolts on it when you think about it for like 2 seconds that make like just a critical thinking perspective that it's not worth thinking about like ever. And to be fair, I think the vast majority of people talking about Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings are really just trying to make the Favre joke, the Packers, Jets, Vikings. Oh, it's the same. Like that, they're just trying to do that. And like, okay, whatever, get your kicks in, but it's not. I'm not going to accuse you of being creative. It's been done. But if you want to get in on it, if you want to say the same joke everyone else is saying, and that I'm not going to begrudge you that. But if you want to be serious, like let's benefit of the doubt. Okay. Maybe I'm being too mean. Maybe I'm being too judgmental. Maybe I'm overlooking an idea that actually has merit. Okay. Let's take it face value. The first deadbolt on this that makes it super different from the Favre thing to me is Favre wanted the Vikings specifically. He wanted the Vikings when he first was divorcing with the Packers after 2007. He wanted to go to the Vikings. And it was reported at the time that the Packers would not allow that. They didn't want to cut him because they didn't want him to go to the Vikings. They wanted to trade him so they could keep him away from that. And he had to retire and then unretire and do that thing with the Jets situation to get out of his contract with the Jets. And he had to do the same thing with the Packers the year before because he didn't want to go to the Vikings. There is no allegory here with the Packers. I don't think there's really bad blood with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers any more than there is with any other team. It was a business. It was that was it. And they traded him and he requested a trade and they granted it. It was not the same situation at all. So that's something. And the other thing is, locker room wise, Brett Favre was seen as a positive locker room thing. Even through his time with the Jets, where he got hurt and he wasn't the same and it was an okay season. And then when he came to the Vikings, it was like, he's going to juice things up. And people said maybe he's going to be a diva and, he's going to be his diva self and it's going to be a problem. But it was pretty clear pretty fast that Brett Favre was really good for the team chemistry of the 2009 Vikings. And that team had a lot of fun and played together. And, he gave them an energy. They all were endeared by this 40-year-old graybeard running around like a kid on Christmas. He was a positive personality. Now, I feel I should say, not all things about Brett Favre's personality are positive. There were some text messages I think we would all like to forget about, and some welfare fraud that also we probably should not speak too much about. But this is not that kind of podcast. But suffice to say, in 2009, in that locker room, he did not divide anyone. The only person that he pulled away from the team was Brad Childress, and that had a lot more to do with Brad Childress. Compare that to Rodgers, who completely divided the Jets. It seems like not even argued that Rodgers was a toxic presence on the Jets. He was in the owner's ear. There was that suspicious meeting, that closed door meeting, I think on the airplane, like 12 hours before they fired Robert Saleh, or maybe it was in London, like that, they say, they didn't have it, they didn't talk about it, but obviously, this is like people are going to ask those questions. Not to mention the seeming roster control he had. They brought in Alan Lazard and they brought in Davante Adams, and none of it worked. The Jets were terrible. They were a better team with Zach Wilson. And that's the other problem with this Aaron Rodgers thing is he's bad. He's a bad quarterback now. It's over. He's older, hilariously, than Brett Favre was when he came to Minnesota. He's 41. Favre was 40. He's very clearly in the twilight of his career. He came off the Achilles. I guess he's as healthy as he's going to be off that Achilles, but he's just not good anymore. And I could see it. The most visible game to me was, of course, Week 5 in London, and I could see it. He was writing checks his arm couldn't cash, and he's going through that moment that every quarterback goes through when they get old. If they're lucky enough, if they're good enough to play until they're old, they get this moment where they can't make the throws that they've built their game off of, and they have to recalibrate their game. And some guys survive it. Tom Brady did, won another Super Bowl. I think Brett Favre did, figured it out, right? And some guys don't. They just don't figure it out. I think Peyton Manning did in 2015, really, I do. The game he had left in him was a bit more short game, and it wasn't nearly as impressive, but it was good enough, right? And they had a good defense, and they won. Rodgers never did that. And I don't want him to be playing guess and check when we got a rookie waiting in the wings. And then that's the last deadbolt to this, is that the Vikings have J.J. McCarthy and they're excited about him. The Vikings had Tavares Jackson, and he was their young guy, but he was in year 3 and they were like giving up on him. He was losing a camp competition to Sage Rosenfels when Brett Favre came in, completely different situations. So go get your jokes off. But if you're actually purporting this as a serious option for the Vikings, I think you're just unserious. And you don't have to be serious, but don't expect me to take you seriously.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. I'm looking tonight at Grizzlies Suns. The Grizzlies favored on the road amid all the trade drama in Phoenix, but they're laying just 2 points. Yes, thank you very much. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
A couple of new veteran wide receivers are now about to hit the market.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers.
As the days go by, more and more wide receivers seemingly become available to the Chargers. Davante Adams seems like he's on his way out of New York, and Deebo Samuel officially requested a trade. So obviously that begs the question, who should the Chargers be interested in bringing in? And hey, on Sunday, the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely dismantled the Kansas City Chiefs. They beat them badly and provided the blueprint possibly for the Chargers and everyone else to beat the Chiefs and remove them from Super Bowl contention in the future. And can the Chargers actually build that team capable of winning the West?
We know there's a way to do it. They are not invincible, but can the Chargers do enough to actually make that leap and finally be competitive in an AFC West that really hasn't been in several years? But I do have to start with the news that's been going around, especially when you know the Chargers need offensive weapons, and now a couple more of them have just entered the realm of possibility with Davante Adams and also Tyreek Hill. It came out that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be back in New York, which means there's almost no likelihood the Jets are going to keep the $38 million cap hit that Davante is going to cost next year. And we found out yesterday that Deebo Samuel has now been granted the permission to go and seek a trade out and find a trade partner for the 49ers. And for a team like the Chargers that needs weapons, these are two more, really high caliber weapons and very productive weapons that now seem like a decent possibility. Now there's more options besides just potentially a T. Higgins or trading for a DK Metcalf. So the first buy or sell starts with this, David, because it is Buy or Sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Chargers storylines and overreactions. And the first one is this: buy or sell, the Chargers should be interested in Davante Adams.
Yeah, I think you're looking at this and you look at Davante Adams and you say, oh man, he's a little bit up there in age, but then you got to look at the stats, and the stats tell you that the answer is absolutely yes. The Chargers should have a lot of interest in Davante Adams, which, hey, he's got a big, cap number here. His base salary is about $35 million. So he is a clear and obvious cut candidate. The Jets can save $29 million in cap space by letting him go and only absorbing $8 million. And that's something that's going to be really, really easy for them to do. It just seems like a very smart business decision. But when you go into the stats for Davante Adams, it's, even with all this uncertainty and all the change this season, he put up another 1,000-yard receiving season, which I don't think anybody just looking at it from the outside in without looking at the stats would have ever expected that. I mean, it just didn't seem like he put together that type of year, but he absolutely did. And not only that, he's just the model of consistency. That was his fifth 1,000-plus receiving yard season in a row for Davante Adams. So, no matter what the age is, it doesn't matter. The guy still is on the field and producing at an exceptionally high level.
He really is. And you might wonder, okay, well, why the Chargers, right? Why would he potentially want to go to the Chargers outside playing with Justin Herbert? But the report is what made it interesting and immediately made me think of the Chargers, which is from Ian Rappaport, who said Davante Adams left his 2025 contract unchanged and his $38.3 million cap number is untenable. He'd have to agree to a new deal to stay. And with Aaron Rodgers moving on, Adams likely will as well. And Adams would like to be on the West Coast, I'm told. Well, I do know a team that plays out on the West Coast. He is, played high school football in the Bay Area in Santa Clara. So the 49ers, obviously one of those options. The Los Angeles Rams, who have another weapon they're trying to trade in Cooper Kupp. Maybe he's an option, but I mean, they're floating Matthew Stafford out in trade. So maybe that's not realistic. If he wants to play on the West Coast, he just is going to make a ton of money in 2025 anyways, just from getting cut by the Jets. Maybe that is something that makes a lot of sense because it instantly gives you a gigantic upgrade at X receiver, somebody that can win on the outside in one-on-one matchups while you have Ladd McConkey to win on the inside. That's why not every big-time receiver is a good fit for the Chargers specifically, because they have somebody in place in the slot that's already an elite level player, right? Ladd McConkey in many metrics, a top 10, top 15 receiver in the league as a rookie. You need somebody on the outside to help him out and open up better things for him. Davante Adams brings that. I mean, his last 5 games of the year, 36 catches, 510 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He averaged over 100 yards a game and a touchdown per game, and still, like you said, put up 1,063 yards and 85 catches and 8 touchdowns in 14 games. Also had a long of 71. We've seen Justin Herbert with the affinity to take those chances one-on-one on the outside. Now you're getting a guy that has a 50% contested catch percentage in 2024, which is much
really
better
good
than anyone else the Chargers have been linked to so far. And also, we've seen Justin Herbert have that affinity with Mike Williams to throw those back shoulder balls down the sideline. When you get those one-on-one matchups, that changes how teams can attack you. Davante Adams is a back shoulder merchant, and we know that Justin Herbert has the accuracy to put him on him downfield. Very much in favor of Davante Adams in the pursuit of him to fill a gigantic need, and then that pigeonholes you into having to go certain ways in the draft. And it might not be a draft that you want to take offensive receivers or weapons early. We'll talk about that more later. But Deebo Samuel is now another name in the mix because, according to Adam Schefter, the 49ers have granted Deebo Samuel and his agent Torrey Dandy permission to find a trade partner for the wide receiver. So the buyer sells this. The Chargers should trade for Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, I really respect Deebo Samuel's game and what he brings to the table. He definitely is a true kind of gadget receiver, and not just a gadget receiver. Obviously, I like to think of him more as an all-purpose receiver. You know, a guy that you're going to give the ball to.
He's an offensive
backfield.
Weapon.
Yeah. You know, you're going to obviously throw him some passes behind the line of scrimmage. You're going to try to get the ball in his hands quickly because he can definitely make some things happen. However, I don't think that his play style is really conducive to what the Chargers are looking for and what they need in this offense. So I'm definitely going to sell it. Also, you know, when you look at his 2024 stats, they are down quite a lot. I mean, 51 receptions, 670 yards, 3 touchdowns, including 42 rushes, 136 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. He also, you know, I mean, to his credit, provided some pretty good kickoff return numbers. 17 returns for 533 yards, including a 60-yard return. Obviously, the Chargers have an all-pro returner, so that's not really of much consequence. But when you just look at what Deebo is and who he is at this stage of his career, he's several years removed from his all-pro season in 2021, and he's not really any kind of semblance of that player here in 2025. So with all that being said, I don't have very much interest in the Chargers pursuing a trade to acquire Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, is there still good football left for Deebo Samuel? I mean, you could talk me into it, right? There's definitely a decline there. You're talking about the lowest, yards per route run that he's had in several seasons, the lowest yards after the catch per catch he's had since ever. It's his lowest in his career, which was still third in the NFL for anyone with 50+ targets. 8.2 yards after the catch per catch is still insane. But a big part of that is his usage and how he's used. And my bigger thing here, and the reason I'm selling it, is because I don't trust Greg Roman in this offense to be able to use him better than Kyle Shanahan, the guy that put him on the map. I mean, we're talking about a player, if you're looking for an outside receiver that's going to win these one-on-one matchups, this is a guy who only had 3 games of more than 71 yards last season in 15 games. He just hasn't been that guy. And I don't think the Chargers are going to be able to tailor an offense around him or be able to use him as a running back, which, by the way, last year he averaged 3.2 yards per carry, the lowest in his career. So not really being used as a wide back where he's making an impact as a running back, and you can't consistently use him like that at this age and just keep giving him those hits. Maybe a team finds a better way to use him or can find a way to get him back to the numbers that he was putting up several years ago. But the numbers are going down. The missed tackles that he's forcing on a, per catch basis is going down. And I just don't trust the Chargers to kind of be able to revamp creatively his role on an offense and have him start producing those numbers again. I don't think it's a good fit for the Chargers. I think the Chargers should stay away from that and much rather, even though he's an older dude in Davante Adams, get a guy for no draft capital that fills a gigantic need in the offense, and let me focus on other parts now with my draft capital, with the other resources I have to make this a more complete team, but check off a huge weapon off of the list. But we did see over the weekend the Chiefs lose, and not only lose, get dismantled. And they did really put together a blueprint of, hey, this is what works against the Chiefs.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Imagine going to the big game this Sunday. That's what a lot of the people around me here on Radio Row are going to do, and the fans who are coming to New Orleans. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have time searching. Inspiration makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and take the work on ticket. Gametime. Download Gametime Create an account and use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
As the smoke clears, the day after looks about the same as it did the night before.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
This is where it gets difficult, and you can get all the detail and other points of view on both KC Chiefs Corner, where Chris is going to break it down from the number standpoint, the dollar standpoint. You can get on RGR Football and check out our takes on this. But I want to get down to the exit interview, so to speak. What are you taking out of this? And for me, if I'm Clark Hunt, I need to know that the staff is taking something away from this. Because I do, if I'm Clark Hunt, I still have utter faith in everybody. A lot of talk today about who got whose goat and all that. And let me just say straight up, they did a good job on the Eagles defense. They didn't do anything special. They didn't win that game other than they performed better at their task. There was no scheme change. There was no blitz attack. Vic Fangio didn't change anything up. It was the same defense you've beaten 8 times in a row. You just failed to do it correctly. And that's the takeaway for me. The more and more that I think about this, and I went and I looked at some of the film today, it's just the same thing. You refuse to run at what was light boxes. You refuse to run at a widened out pass rush because they weren't scared of you running the ball. They wanted to tee off on you and jack everybody into the backfield, collapse the pocket, and see what happened, and it worked all game long. The takeaway is that Andy Reid has to prepare in a different way that isn't just about the tendencies that you've seen, but about the counterpunch to what they could change. Todd Bowles got him the same way. Vic Fangio got him the same way. They can't ever let that happen again.
You know, it's funny because I've watched a couple of different conversations on X and had several people, comment to me that Patrick Mahomes doesn't belong in the same conversation as Tom Brady ever again.
He's the GOAT. No change.
Say what you want. Tom Brady was 3-2 in his first 5 Super Bowls. Mahomes is still young. Who knows how long he's going to play? We'll have that discussion when we have that discussion. He didn't do something that Tom Brady has never done. What do you want me to say to that? The discussion about how this needs to change the organization and the thing, and I actually had a friend of mine that was texting me about this and said, this game was horrible to watch. It was painful. And I was like, yeah, it was. But I've already moved on. And I started to move on last night before we even recorded the show, if I'm being quite honest. And I'm looking back at it from this angle, and this is the way I'm probably going to approach this entire offseason is, which hurts more, 55 or 59? To me, 55 probably hurt more than 59.
I agree.
You look at the game and you look at how they lost. Yeah, they lost and it wasn't good, but they literally what came from the loss in 55. You can literally look at what happened in Super Bowl 55 and see the fingerprints 4 years later in Super Bowl 59 and realize that 55 led them to being in 57, 58, and 59. So to me, this is a matter of the front office, which we'll talk about here in a couple minutes, is going to get this taken care of, and they know what their problems are. They know what they're going to have to do. I don't disagree with you about the coaching. I said this last night, Andy Reid is going to have to change things. He's going to have to get to a point where he makes adjustments. The one thing that really stands out to me that I couldn't understand is that Andy has usually been such a good players coach that he coaches to his players' strengths. And he absolutely didn't do that at all against the Eagles on offense. That is what sticks out to me. That is the one thing that really sticks out. And going back to the Kelsey thing for just 1 second, because I just thought about this. If Kelsey doesn't come back, then I think one of the things that you could look at is bringing a guy like DeAndre Hopkins back. Not the same position, but they can do a lot of similar things. And Mahomes trusts Hopkins. I don't know that you can have both of those guys back if you have Kelsey here next year.
Yeah. I mean, it all depends on the salaries, right? DeAndre
I'm talking
Hopkins, for the
scheme.
first time in his career, dropped balls this season.
I'm
Three that I
talking more
remember.
scheme than anything else.
No, I get you. But it does depend on the money. I don't know. I don't know that there's a way around that. But the scheme, you can make that a replacement, although I still feel he's better on the outside than anybody is, or any other position, I guess I should say. There's nothing you do to replace Travis Kelce. You can't go a big slot. It's not the same thing. You can't go on X receiver. It's not the same thing. But he's a unicorn.
He is, but I guess where the way I'm looking at it, and the reason I even bring it up is because, to me, you saw Patrick Mahomes have trust in Hopkins like I've never seen him have trust in a wide receiver, and I don't even know that I would say that he had the same kind of trust with Tyreek Hill, because there was throws that I saw him make to Hopkins so quickly that I don't remember him ever really trying to Hill. Now I understand different body types, different catch styles. I understand all that. But he implicitly trusted D-Hop to go do his job and gave him the chance to do it almost from the get-go.
Yeah, that's rare. And you got to pay down on that. You got to double down on that. I think the other thing that you have to take away is that for Steve Spagnuolo, whose defense I felt, even on rewatch, held up remarkably well, you have to be able to account a little bit better for where your deficiencies are. There were a couple of looks, a couple of play calls that I think put Jalen Watson in particular in a bad position.
Yep.
And those, I think, were a reaction to what they were getting down in the box. They did their job. They stopped Saquon Barkley. But this was a departure for Steve Spagnuolo. He sold out to do that and left himself vulnerable on the backside. He doesn't generally do that. He's generally going to let you run on him, because he's not that scared. He's more scared of the pass. And I think for that, I would just say Spagnuolo's instincts are correct. I feel like he maybe doubted himself a little bit here, or doubted that the guys could continue to play the way that they had been. And I think the departure from playing the way you have been is what got him that defeat.
I would argue that if the Chiefs don't give the ball over multiple times in their own territory, Spagnuolo's plan probably works in Kansas City, is at least in the game at late. I don't know that they would have won just because of how bad the offense played, but I mean, you take away the pick six, that's a 7-point swing. Take away the other pick, that's easily another 7-point swing. At that point, you're down to what, 26-22. I mean, you basically gave them 14 points, and that doesn't include what happened on the fumble. So yeah. I think I have a hard time blaming Steve Spagnuolo, because his defense was doing exactly what they coached him to do, and stopping the run, which would have worked. And I also don't think that they're going to be able to hit the deep shot if it's a different to A.J. Brown, or even the one to Devontae Smith if it's a different type of game and it's closer, because I don't think the Eagles are taking those shots in those moments, because I think the reason they took them is because they figured KC thought that they were going to be running. So I think his scheme was great. I think that he had a great plan for what they wanted to do, and they were able to do it. So I don't really want to give him any of the blame for the loss, because I thought the defense actually really played pretty well, considering they gave him how many possessions after 3 and out, after 3 and out, after 3 and out, after 3 and out. You can't expect a defense to hold up to that. Period.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'm going to count them up just because I want to have that number in my head, because I don't have it currently. So you're right. It set them up, and that's the way the outcome rose.